What's up, YouTube? Today we got another update on the Lincoln. Stay tuned. But first, I wanted to announce we've got some Andy's Auto merch now. We got a hat, a shirt, a sticker, a coffee mug, and even a hoodie. You can find these items listed below the video, or you can go to my channel page and you can find them under the store section. If you're interested in supporting the channel while also getting some pretty cool gear for yourself, go ahead and check those out. Now back to the video. Alright guys, so in the last video we got the timing cover all fixed up, we got it painted, we were about ready to put it back on, but then I realized that I need a new water pump. I want to bolt everything up together because I want to make sure that it gets a good seal all the way around the water pump, or the timing cover rather, and without doing the water pump and the timing cover at the same time, then it won't be bolted on at the top, the timing cover won't. It'll only be bolted on at the bottom because some of the bolts are very long and they actually go through the water pump and the timing cover. We also noticed a little bit of compression noise coming out of the engine, so unfortunately I think we are going to have to pull the engine out and do a complete rebuild, and I'll go ahead and explain why. Alright guys, we got some great news here. We got the new timing set right here in this box. I'll go ahead and pull some of that out and show it to you guys. I've noticed that there are a couple differences, and firstly, the new cam gear is all metal instead of metal and nylon, so I don't know if that's going to make a difference or not. The crank gear appears to be exactly the same as the old one, and then the chain itself appears to be thinner. This one has 5 links across and the other one has 7, but it looks like it just has these extra ones on the outside on the top and bottom side. So everything seems like it's going to work. I just did notice those couple subtle differences, so hopefully it doesn't screw up the engine or anything, but we're going to go ahead and go on with this. Alright guys, I went ahead and put the cam gear loosely in place with the fuel pump eccentric on it. If I remember correctly from watching one of my previous videos, that's how the eccentric goes, pretty much opposite of the timing marks. And so I did that, and I went ahead and put some assembly lube on it. However, I think I'm going to end up taking that bolt out because I haven't torqued it yet, and I'm going to put some red Loctite on it, and I'm going to figure out what the torque spec is, and I'm going to go ahead and torque that to spec. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get to that today, so I'm going to have to hop on that on a different day, but very, very soon we will be having this timing chain and gears all put back together, and we got the gasket mating surface all cleaned up pretty good, and we got a new gasket as well, so this whole front of the engine is going to be getting put back together very, very soon. Okay, so we've got the timing chain reinstalled. As you can see, the timing marks are lined up. The top dot and the bottom dot are lined up there on the gears. And you literally just take the gears, put them in the chain in your hand, and then you can slide the whole thing on as a unit. Timing this thing is significantly easier than a modern vehicle. So also, after doing a little bit of research, I determined that it doesn't actually matter what orientation this eccentric is on the cam, because it's actually held in place by the clamping force of the bolt here. So it's recommended to use some high temperature red thread locker on this bolt and torque it to about 45 foot-pounds. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put this in place. And also during my research, I saw an idea that I thought made a lot of sense. Our guide pin for the cam sprocket is right inside this hole, but it's deep down in there. And I saw a guy say to basically orient this eccentric where it covers that pin up, just in case for whatever reason the pin falls out. It'll prevent that from coming out all the way. So I'm going to go ahead and put some red thread locker on here, torque this to 45, and call it good on that. Alright, so we got that torqued down now. Luckily, we didn't even have to hold the cam gear in place. It just torqued down on its own. I brought my little water pump pulley holding tool there, and I got a couple bolts in it. I was going to try to use that to hold the cam gear in place if necessary. I wasn't too worried about losing time, because if we tightened it up, then it should all spin together in the event that it did spin. But we got that guy on there pretty straight, I'd say. So now, just as an extra precaution, I'm going to go ahead and put some more assembly lube around some of these links and the gear itself here. I just want to be extra careful, and whenever I change the oil for the first time on it, I don't plan to put more than an hour or two tops of run time on that oil, and I'm probably going to change it again. I've kept a trash bag right here in that oil pan the majority of the time that I was scraping on it and painting it and everything, but I have no doubt that some type of dust and debris likely got in there. I'm going to do my very, very best to clean it out. However, whatever oil goes in it on the first oil change, I don't plan on keeping in there for long. Same with the coolant. I'm going to put some fresh stuff in there on the coolant and the oil. I'm going to let it be in there for a little while, and then I'm going to change it again just to make sure that we've got a good flush on both of those systems. So next, what we've all been waiting so long for, we can finally put the timing cover back on. Alright, went ahead and added some assembly lube all in there in the spots that I could reach. Just want to be extra careful and make sure everything's good to go with it. Make sure it breaks in properly and everything. And then also there's this little disc that goes back on the crankshaft. I went ahead and cleaned that off and put it back in place. So now, I guess I could have held off on putting that disc on, but before I go any farther, just to be extra sure, I'm going to put the crank bolt back in, and I'm going to rotate the engine over 720 degrees. So I'm going to basically do 2 full rotations, and we're going to make sure that those 2 dots still line up. Finally also got that new gas cap in the mail today. Looking good. Alright, so we spun it around twice. It's not on top dead center anymore, but we got it. It was good after the second turn, no problem. I just had to turn it a little bit off of TDC so I could get the damn bolt back out. But anyway, I put that disc back on there. And one thing I want to throw out to you guys before we get too far into this project, because I know some of you guys that are watching may be a little bit more knowledgeable than me on some of this, but while I'm turning this engine over, I could swore that I hear like compression noise coming out of this area here. Now it could just be down here and I'm tripping, but I'm pretty sure that I hear compression noises going on from this general area. And also, if you guys have been following along, you would know that that is the side on the timing cover that had all that horrible erosion on it. That is the side when I first pulled the water pump off even. It had all that dust and nasty shit in it. And I'm wondering if we maybe have a bad head gasket on the damn bugs in my face. I think we may have a bad head gasket on the driver's side there. So if anybody has any ideas of why I might be hearing compression noise coming out of one of the water pump ports, definitely leave it in the comments below. because if I can determine that it has a bad head gasket without getting it all put back together, that would be great. I mean, everything that I just did realistically shouldn't have to come back apart even if a head gasket is bad. The only thing is, flip the camera back around, once I got the timing cover back on, I planned on starting to put like the AC brackets and some of that other stuff back on so it's a little more complete. But if I have to pull a head off the motor, then I'd really hate to, you know, go too far into the project. I will be pulling valve covers off, and the intake's probably going to come off and all of that eventually anyway, so I guess we'll see. It needs a whole new exhaust system as well, so I mean, I half-ass feel like I should just plan on doing head gaskets anyway, but I really wanted to just bring this engine back to life, get it running, you know what I mean? It only has 82,000 miles on it, so I certainly hope that it doesn't have a bad head gasket. Then again, who knows what head gasket material was made of, you know, 53, 54 years ago. So who knows if they're any good. Maybe they failed a long time ago, or maybe they failed due to sitting and the engine hasn't been turned over for a long time. I really don't know, but I definitely heard some kind of compression noise coming out of there. So if anybody has any experience on that and can confirm that it is a head gasket, or maybe even a yeah, something, I'm not really sure, but I definitely don't feel like you should be hearing those kind of noises going on. So if anybody has any ideas on that, definitely let me know. Otherwise, even if we have a bad head gasket, we are probably good at this point to go ahead and put the timing cover back on. Alright, so once I got the timing cover ready to go, and I thought I was ready to install it, heard that compression noise when I turned the engine over. So as you can see, all the spark plug wires have been disconnected. They're disconnected on both sides. I guess I should step around to the other side. Maybe you guys can see a little better. But the spark plugs are all removed. Went ahead and did a compression test on every cylinder, and we got between 180 and 190 on this side. Pretty much the same thing on the back 3 cylinders, but the front one was only about 155. So I definitely think there's some kind of an issue going on there. But while we're over here, definitely want to have you keep note of how nasty this valve cover looks and how nice it's going to look here shortly when I show you the other side there. But basically, just because of the compression issue there, and also because I don't trust 54-year-old head gaskets, after thinking about it for a while, I think I'll get this car going, and then we'll blow a head gasket after 100 miles or so, and I'm not really too interested in doing that. So I think we're going to pull the motor out. Also, I guess let me flip around here. I don't know if you guys can tell. You sure can now. There's a big cross member that goes right underneath the oil pan, and the oil pan has been leaking for a while, clearly. So in order to replace the oil pan gasket, we have to at least raise the engine up. And since the engine has to be raised, and since we're pulling the heads off anyway, I think we might as well just go ahead and rebuild the whole thing. So this has gone from a front end of the engine pulley system rebuild to an entire engine rebuild. So definitely stay tuned for that, because this is going to be a full series on how to rebuild a 460 big block. So it's going to be a very fun and enjoyable project. Full-blown engine rebuild we're going to be doing. And another cool thing is we can work on this in the garage where it has air conditioning. Yeah, buddy. Another couple things I want to point out before we go in and look at some parts that I got in the basement. I went ahead and loosened up a lot of the AC and power steering lines so that I could get this valve cover over here off. And then I also got both of the heater hoses removed. One of them went up to the water pump and the other one went into the intake. So we got both of those taken out, and I got a lot of that tar insulation or whatever it was off of the AC line, or the lower one here. I'm gonna be able to take that off soon. And then there's the vacuum line for the heater control valve. Then you can kind of see there's one of the ports, and then the other ports right there for the heater core. So I just got to take that plate off right there, and then we can actually pull the heater core right out. And then here's one of the little holders for the lines, and then I'm putting all my screws for the holders back into the side here so I don't lose them. I'm going to try my best to reroute everything as best as I can. Another thing I went ahead and took off is the brake master cylinder. Luckily, one of the two lines came off just fine, but as you can see down there, I could not get the line off from the bottom or the top, so I kind of just had to yank it, and it ended up coming off for me. We also got the fuel line removed, the one that comes up to the carburetor, and I'll show you guys all of that stuff when we get down to the garage. But I think that's just about all the updates we've got for the engine bay here. Shortly I'll be taking off the power steering and AC lines completely, and I have much better access down at the gearbox to take the lines off on the other end now that the master cylinder is out, and I'll have even more room once this booster comes out, because that's literally the next thing that I plan to remove. Unfortunately, I did find a part number from A1 Cardone, I think it is, but it seems like it's obsolete, so I'm gonna have a hard time finding that booster, but I'm still on the hunt for it. I'm gonna go ahead and remove it because we need to get some brakes on this car just as much as we need the engine to work. Those are the two top priorities, brakes and engine. So let's go down to the garage and I'll show you what we're working with down there. So down here we've got the crumbled up battery tray that I removed. Still have to get that, get a new one there of that. Got the washer reservoir removed. And then a lot of this is still the same old stuff we've been having. We do have all the spark plugs out, water pump's been out, fan clutch has been out, power steering pump's been out. My local O'Reilly's was throwing away a bunch of scrap hose, so here's the hose that's going to go from the new fuel line once I get it to the fuel sending unit in the back, so we can finally put that on. I actually did order some fuel line as well, so we're going to be able to make a new gas line here soon. And then I also decided I'm going to replace the water pump plate behind the water pump, which we can talk about that once we get to the trunk of the car. But moving along here, I took off one of the support braces right by the master cylinder just to get better access to things. This is one of the heater core pipes that I have redone, and I was able to kind of salvage the original fitting. I cleaned it out inside the best I could. I let some water flow through it. It does seem to come out clean. Does have a little ding in it. I tried to straighten out as best as I could, but didn't seem to want to straighten out. It's pretty sturdy steel there. Then I got the two hoses, the longer one and the shorter one, brand new, to replace the ones on this heater control valve. I found this heater control valve for about 50 bucks online, so I'll be getting that here shortly, hopefully. And then of course we still have some AC parts that we took off a while back, as well as the parts that cover up the fuel and brake lines underneath. We still have the brake line, of course, or the fuel line rather. And then this is the other heater hose and pipe. I'm going to have to get a hose here because the O'Reilly scraps, like I was just mentioning that they were throwing away, that they gave to me, none of them are molded. They're all just straight hose from a roll, and this is a molded hose, and I don't want to try to make that out of a straight hose. I mean, I could in a pinch, but I'd rather just try to find a random hose that has a rough shape like that and try to use it. Then unfortunately the little rubber insulator deal broke, so I had to order a new one of those just so it still looks nice and factory. And then of course I have to take this off and make it look like that. That's just primer, and I think I'm just going to leave it that primer gray color. It kind of looks like galvanized steel again, which is exactly what it was, I believe. And so I'm going to just have to sand this down, make it look like that. It's going to have all fresh rubber. We'll have some nice heater hoses and a brand new heater core going in there eventually. And then this just kind of covered up some relay that was underneath the master cylinder. I just removed it to get better access. There's our valve cover bolts and a couple bolts to hold the power steering line down. Those little clips go on to the back of the alternator. This is our brake booster check valve, which another thing I thought was weird. This one goes to the intake, which is normal, what I'm used to. But then this other one goes to a pipe that goes down behind the engine and back towards the transmission. Not sure what that is just yet, but I'm sure we'll figure that out eventually. Then here is the fuel line for the engine itself, or from the fuel pump to the carburetor. That was the other one that we removed. So we got a few more parts off, a few more things getting restored. Now let's go to the trunk. Finally decided to take one of the valve covers off, so I'm sanding this down just like I did all those other parts. We're gonna paint this up nice and fresh too. This is one of the things I've been the most excited to sand down and paint, because this is the kind of stuff that's really gonna make the engine look good. I know it's pretty dark out here, but that's what it looks like all sanded down. You can see that power by Ford again. You can read it now. Looks like it's about to go on a spaceship. I'm going to spray it down with some brake cleaner, wipe it down, and I'm going to get some primer and some paint on it. Man, I had to get a light and bring it out and show you guys. Just with the primer on there, it looks incredible. Looks like something got on there though. Yeah, something got flaked off a little bit. I'm not sure what's going on. Oh my god, it's getting rained on. That's why. I better take it inside. So since it got rained on, I decided to let it sit for 48 hours. And then I kind of got rid of any of the evidence of water. So I went ahead and brought it out here and hit it again with another coat. And then we'll hit it with this blue. Alright, so that's what it looks like with a fresh coat of blue. I know it's not going to look 100% perfect, but I think it still looks pretty damn good. I went over it kind of lightly for the first coat, and on the second coat I'm going to do a slightly heavier one, and then we'll probably call it good with that. I will need to track down the emissions sticker because I had to scrape that off. So eventually I'll hopefully get a new one of those and then smack it on right here where those numbers are. That was covered up by the emissions sticker. Then if anyone's wondering, I just kind of put that rag in there to not try to paint inside the valve cover as much as I possibly could. So we're going to let this sit there for about 10 minutes and then we'll hit it with the second coat. One thing I want to mention that does kind of suck, and I know you can't really see it too well, maybe if I turn this light on, like right under this little tab, it still looks kind of shitty in there because I wasn't really able to sand at that too good, but you're only really going to be seeing it from this angle anyway, so hopefully that's not too much of an issue, but I think it'll be alright. Looks a hell of a lot better than it did, that's for sure. Well, we got that last coat on there, now we just gotta let it dry. Looking good. Alright, and there's the old master cylinder that we took off with the broken brake line. Got the police driving by, something's going on. But anyway, I hope that I didn't deform that line too much, because I was hoping to keep its original bend and shape so I know what to copy, but I'm sure it's screwed by now. Some of this stuff you guys have already seen. Here's the plate I was referring to. It's just kind of chewed up in a few spots. Looks like it's corroded and eaten away, and it's got a lot of pitting in it, and I just don't trust that. So even though it was 50 bucks, I did go ahead and order a new one of those. And then inside here we've got our painted alternator brackets. And then I got the AC brackets painted up somewhere as well. Here's the timing cover that we've got painted up. I think this is the AC brackets in there painted. And then in here, as you saw earlier, we've got our painted up valve cover for the driver's side. And then we also have this piece that goes over the exhaust. We got it painted. That goes on the passenger side, and it goes up into the air cleaner. And there's a vacuum operated device on it where on a cold start it will suck air from near the exhaust manifold to heat up the engine faster, or at least that's what it's supposed to do. So this is kind of the air duct for that system, where the intake, it's a hot air intake for cold start essentially. And so this is the ducting for that I've got painted. So we're starting to get quite a pile of parts in here going on. But this is the happy section of the car, you know what I mean? This is where this is all the progress that we've made. And that's going to be the end of the Lincoln update video for today. Really hope y'all enjoyed. Stay tuned for the next one, where we're probably going to be making a new fuel line so we can finally get that put back on. Otherwise, please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you next time.